In this short video, I want to discuss what you need to do for this week for the field research project. Now, I've talked about this in class a bit already, and I've given you examples about certain experiments that I've seen in the past, and the pros and the cons and all that sort of thing, and what I'm looking for in the experiment and how you should try to run it. And I've even asked you to get into groups, and you've gotten the emails of your group members. You should have a group that you're working with from 2 to 3 people, and it would really help if they were from this class. That way they have a vested interest in actually getting the work done, and it's easy enough to meet. And what I do for the field research, which is basically experiment work, is I will cancel class at least once, probably twice for this, so that you are assured a meeting time with your group. See, I don't know when your work schedules are or what other obligations you've had since the beginning of the semester, but we all know that you should have this hour of the class. If it's a Tuesday, Thursday class from 11 to 12, 15, you should have that time free from work responsibilities, from athletics, from whatever. So, or if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8 to 9, you should have those hours free. So if I actually cancel class once for one class a week, you have at least that hour, that's 75 minutes to meet with your group. If you can't find any other common time, you have at least that time to fall back upon. So I need to do this. Now you need to meet and talk about what experiment you're going to do. You need to agree upon an experiment, be able to write it up quickly, describe it in its first draft form, because you can revise the experiment as you continue on, but you need to have some idea right now of something that you're committing to, and you don't want to necessarily just junk the whole thing. But feel free to revise it and tweak it before you actually begin to seriously collect the data on it. So part of what you need to do with your group meeting is first of all, settle on some idea and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Now, what is it we're trying to study? What sort of social habit among humans are we trying to study here? What sort of versions of this experiment? You need at least 2 different versions of the experiment, in which one has, a particular element that the other does not, so that you can see if the absence of that particular element create the change in the data. So these are the controls. For example, somebody might do a simple experiment of putting a sign on a door, and the sign says, "Please do not use." A double door scenario where you're walking down a hallway or an exit has 2 doors to it, and both are in use. Well, put a sign on one of the doors saying, "Please do not use." Just that's all it says. But one of the signs, have it be one version of it, just have a handwritten sign on a piece of notebook paper. Put it up there. See how many people ignore the signs, how many people don't. Because obviously both doors can be used, right? So when you put the sign up, you're testing out how many people just trust the sign without actually thinking, well, why can't I use it? That sort of thing, challenging the sign, so to speak. They don't like to challenge it. And my prediction is going to be that most people will just obey the sign. Okay, so you have the handwritten sign on that one of those doors, and just watch how many people actually start bottlenecking through that other door that doesn't have the sign. Now, take that handwritten sign off the next time you do it, or in another place. Have basically the same experiment going, but with a nice printed out sign with Kent letterhead, with the Kent logo printed out. Make it look official with actual print and font and that sort of thing. I'm talking about computer printout, and put it on the glass door, one of the 2, and see if there's any change. You see, I've changed something. I've changed the style of the sign from handwritten to official looking, and that would be an example of a control. And the idea is you've materially changed the experiment in one way. Does that one element, does that one change produce different data sets? So you have to have those 2 versions going, and discuss it. How are we going to have these controls? And you got to try to keep it simple. All right. Then sometime this week with your group, I want you to do a one quick sort of dry run through, and you're not collecting a lot of data. You're just like, let's just see how easy it would be to set this thing up. And I told you, didn't I, in class about, well, the purpose of the dry run is just to quickly go through it once to see if there's any problems that are going to surface in the practical application of the experiment. Because in the theory, it might look very nice, but when you actually go try to do it, you might run into all these problems that you didn't anticipate. So trying to do a quick dry run, in which you're not even really collecting the data, you're just saying, can we actually do this? Really helps you nail potential problems. For example, I talked about this in class. You know, the group that wanted to pretend one of them was handicapped, and they were going to push a wheelchair around, and then, you know, have the guy fall out of the wheelchair and see how many people helped, or how many people gasped and just stood by and watched, or how many people ignored the poor guy rolling around on the sidewalk, yelling for help, or I don't know what he was going to do. See, that sounds interesting enough, but when it comes actually, if they had just done one dry run, and I think they may have found this out when they did the dry run, where are you going to get the wheelchair? You know? Because you just can't go to the nurse or the doctors or whatever it is on campus, the infirmary, and say, I need a wheelchair. You know? They're not going to do it that way for insurance purposes, for their own safeguarding of the equipment. So are you going to rent it? Are you going to go and find someone who's actually in a wheelchair and say, hey, buddy, you know, would you sit on the bench and let me borrow your wheelchair for 2 days? No. How are you going to do it? So the actual getting of the wheelchair was a big problem for this group. They figured it out right away when they did the dry run, and then they changed it. And I think they actually, I can't remember, but it may have been crutches, or it may have been just a cast that they were playing around with. So that's the purpose of the dry run, just so that you find those potential problems that will show when you actually try to run the experiment, and that will help you redesign it. Okay, now you're going to need to get this information. You're going to need to be, every one of you is going to needs to be able to send me an email. To submit in Blackboard or our course platform. You know, this is who I met with. This is where we met. This is how long we met. This is our experiment, and this is what happened in the dry run. Okay, you're going to need to be able to do that, every one of you, so that I can know that all the students have a general idea of what they're doing. So of course I understand I'm going to get some redundant information, but I don't want you to copy and paste it from someone else. You in your own words, give me the same information, so that I can tell you're thinking it through too. All right. So that's the reason I've canceled one of our classes this week. And you know, when you go to the classroom, if you weren't here today, or if you weren't in class when we discussed this, you know, you're going to go there and no one's going to be there, because you should be with your group. All right. So now I've asked you to actually get into groups before this week, so you should have the email. You should know who you're dealing with. Now, if you for some reason just haven't been to class for a while and you don't have a clue about what you're doing here as far as the field experiment goes, I think you might just have to take the low grade for this one, but as soon as you can, because we'll meet again in class, we'll talk about it, then you'll have more chances to meet with groups, and you'll have to get with a group and help them with what they've already designed. Okay, but you know, this preliminary report, I don't see how you're going to be able to make it up. So I'm sorry about that, but that's one of the virtues from just constantly coming to class, is you're not only staying up with the Blackboard work, but you're understanding it because I'm explaining it, I'm helping you with this, and then there is that live voice, live class activity that we do also. So, okay, I just wanted to explain why I did cancel one of our classes this week. Don't let that be a surprise to you. And in fact, if you know some people already from the class, and you just have their emails, or you see them in other places, and you say, hey, you know, how about I join your group? So if you haven't done it yet, you still probably can if you have those contacts. Look forward to getting the information of your experiments.